Okay, so we're going to start now on Yud Aleph Amud Beis. We're going to do the Rashi again. Last time we were left without the Rashi. In the middle of the Rashi was a hard Rashi, so I'm going to try to sort of go through it again. The Gemara is talking about here that different matters. The Gemara quoted Ula. Ula said that there are three items that the rabbis allowed, even though they wouldn't allow it on its own, but only because they were worried because of the end. Like in this case, when we're talking about on Yontiv, they allowed you to do certain things because they wanted in the end, because they wanted you to do it in the beginning. They were worried that if they're not going to allow you at the end, you might not do it. And the Gemara brings down all the different things that they allowed. And then we have one more statement. And this is a statement, Rechove Omar Rabbi Yehuda. Rechove said name Rabbi Yehuda. We'll go back to this Rashi, which we got stuck. But first, this Rashi is talking about why it says Rabbi Yehuda and not, as usual, Rav Yehuda. That's going to go. Let's first see what he says, and then we'll go back to the Rashi saying Rechove said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. So here we have a halacha that, generally speaking, people who are not religious and they are not careful with impurity, which means when they're impure, they touch the food. So their food is always suspected of being tummy. Maybe it's not fit to eat it as clean food. You know, if you want to eat your food clean or for truma, for other things, we don't normally eat food that an amhoretz, a non-chaver, non-religious, that he touched, because he might be tomei. He may have made the food tomei, so we don't want to eat it. However, during the holidays, when everybody comes to the Beis Hamikdash for the Aliyah L'Regel in Yerushalayim, the Chachamim made a special allowance, and they said, during the holiday, we are not going to worry that maybe the person touching it is tummy. So let's say you have a store that sells only pure, but in the store come in all kinds of people. So we're not going to worry that maybe an Amaretz walked in and he touched it. We're going to say it's okay during the holiday. Why? The Chacham did not want to shame them in such a situation, in a public situation, and they said that they're going to allow it. The question becomes, what happens with that food that was left over after Yom Tov? So they touched some things in the store. Is the pshat that there is no, this is only a rabbinic, the rabbis were goyzer it because they were extra machmir. That wasn't strictly the halacha. We don't have to technically suspect on our own. It's only because the chachamim were machmir. So do we say that for Yom Tov the chachamim aren't machmir, and therefore what's left over in the store after Yom Tov, the storekeeper can go and sell as usual? He doesn't consider it that it was touched. It doesn't matter because it didn't apply. Nothing happened. Or should we say that's the opinion of the Rabbanon? Or should we say no, that during Yom Tov, the Chachamim did not, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, no, the Chacham said you're not allowed to, and Rabbi Yehuda says, you know what, only at the time of Yom Tov. No, the Rabbanon say it only applies for the time of Yom Tov, and Rabbi Yehuda says, no, he can just go ahead. Let's look at it inside. I'm going to get back to this previous Rashi. Rechava Omar Rabbi Yehuda. He comes up with a new thing. Why do the Chachamim allow to do something in the beginning because of the end? So, what is the case over here? Af hapiseach chavisoy. Even one who opens the barrel. Or the next case is umaschil bi'isosei al gav haregel, and he starts a dough on the back of the yontav, meaning during yontav. Rashi explains, what does it mean? Peseches chavisoy. Chover is a name for a religious person who we know who's been established that he is religious. It's called a chover, a friend, a buddy. When he starts to sell his wine, so he opens up the barrel, he starts to sell the wine. Or he starts kikroi, he opens up the loaf. He does it le'oile regolim beregel. For the people that are oile regel during the holidays, he opens up, starts up, he's going to sell. And everybody is, in the store, everybody's touching the wine, they're touching the loaf, the dough. Now, so what happens? So it's something like this. The tumas am haaretz beregel tahira kol yimei saregel. The tumah of an am haaretz is clean during the entire days of the festival. So during the festival, all of the wine and the loaf is all tohem. That which is left after the Yom Tov, nechleku, in other words, what happens with the wine and the loaf that was left for after Yom Tov? So there is a machloikis, nechleku Rabbi Yehuda v'chachamim, b'perek chomer b'kodesh. There is a machloikis Rabbi Yehuda and the chachamim in the chapter Chomer b'kodesh Chagigat Avchavo. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Yigmoir v'Yikreno lechaverim. He says that he can continue and sell it to chaverim. In other words, even though it's after Yom Tov, we're still not going to apply any prohibition against this wine and against the loaf because he touched it. He can continue and sell it to chaverim, to people who are careful. He can sell it to them. Ulchol adam, to every person. However, v'yizohir shelo yiga am haaretz oid. He has to be careful that an am haaretz shouldn't touch it again, because now if he's going to touch it, not anymore during Yom Tov. So he has to be careful, but he can continue selling it as if it's not been touched. That wine and that dough. The Chachamim say lo yigmer, but lo yimkerem. He should not finish the barrel and not sell the dough. Mishum de nitmaz beregel b'magam haaretz. Because during the festival it became tomei with the touching of the am haaretz. The am haaretz made it Tomei. Unihi dechol yemoy saregel ishtaroi. Shaloi levaisham. So although during the days of the Yom Tov it was permitted so as not to embarrass them. Miu la'achar haregel cholol lemafreya. But after the Yom Tov, it applies retroactively. When they touched it during Yom Tov, it didn't apply. But what is left over, it's still they touched it, and they made it tamei, and now after Yom Tov we can't use it. So either the Chachamim allowed it totally, so it's as if they didn't touch it, or we don't have a tum at all, or they just exempted for the duration of Yom Tov. After Yom Tov, it comes back to the status, and you can't sell it as normal. So Vashmi'in on Rechava, and Rabbi Chava is telling us that Rabbi Yehuda lo Amar Yigmor. The only reason why Rabbi Yehuda says that he should finish, that he allows him, Elo mishum tchilosum, it's because of the beginning, which means if you're not going to allow him to, he's not going to do it, he's not going to start it from the beginning. So in order to make sure, the only reason why Rabbi Yehuda holds that you're allowed to finish, it's because he's worried if you're not going to let them the Gzeira away altogether after Yom Tov, might not want to start. So therefore, the Chachamim said you can start. That's what the Rechava said. So this is another case that we see that the Chachamim, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to the Rabbanan, they don't allow you, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, who allows you, and he says the reason why Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to finish selling it after the Yom Tov, because if they don't allow you, then you won't open it up and you won't do it on Yom Tov. Okay, so that's the case. Now let's go back to the Rashi's. What is Rashi bothered over here that this whole Rashi over? Rashi is bothered in all of the Gemara. We call him Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda without a Yud. The people that were in Bavel, they were Amoraim, they weren't Tanoim. This is a little bit strange that Rechava Omar, he said name of Rabbi Yehuda. So why does it say Rabbi Yehuda? So, I mean, there's a lot in Tosfos, there's a lot of in different Gemaras, but Rashi brings down that Yesh Mefarshim, some people want to say that the reason he said Rabbi Yehuda, because Sofik Mishmei de Rabbi Yehuda Nisio, Sofik Mishmei de Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, Rechava said it, and he wasn't sure. He said in the name, but he wasn't sure if Rabbi Yehuda said it or Rabbi Yehuda said it. So he wrote Rabbi Yehuda. What I don't understand, is why do they say that he wasn't sure? Why don't they say just that the Rechava said it in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, of Rabbi Yehuda? They don't have, why are they saying that he wasn't sure and therefore he quoted it in such a way? Why doesn't we just say that he said it in the name of Rabbi Yehuda? Look at Rashi's question. Rashi says it couldn't be Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. This Rabbi Yehuda isn't talking about the time that Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, not talking about the Rebbe, but he's talking about the Rabbi Yehuda the Amoyre. Vani Oimer, Rashi says, I disagree with that in Forshim, that Loi Ro Rechava Rabbi Yehuda Nesiyah. Rechava never saw the Nossi Rabbi Yehuda. The home in Pumpadisa Habe. He was in Babylonia. He was in Pumpadisa. And we don't find that he ever made it up to Eretz Yisrael. So Rabbi Yehuda Nossi was a Nossi in Eretz Yisrael. He was a Tana. He was in Eretz Yisrael. He never went to Eretz Yisrael. How could he say it in the name of Rabbi Yehuda? That's Rashi's first question. First point. But Rashi has another point. Ki amrinon ba'almo the dayik v'gomer shmaitze mepume drabe. Not sure where this ba'alma is, because let me see. I'm not sure. I got to find where this ba'alma, but it seems like we're saying about that he was very particularly, and he heard the statement of the mouth of his teacher. In other words, he would say everything exactly like Rechava of Pumpadisa, which means that the Rechava de Pumpadisa was very particular, and he would always say exactly as he heard it from his teacher. So that means that he's reliable, that he was very precise, and he learned it from his teacher, just like Rachava of Pumbedisa, who was very medaik. That's the Gemara talks about it. But if it is true that he didn't know, and he still Habenlon Lememor, so Rashi says we should have said, the Gemara, not only that he was medayik, that he said exactly, de Gavri Goris, even when there was a question who the author is, he also learned it. So that would be a point to rely on. Because you see, the Gemara talks about Rabbi Yehuda there in Chulin Chesam and Beis. So the Gemara does say over there that he's so reliable, he says, Anomer Rabbi Yehuda Kamrina, the Gemara says there, Da filu sveike de gavre goris. He even taught you, he didn't just say a statement, he just said maybe this one. The Gemara says, the Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Rabbi Yehuda said, and then Rabbi, Sofik Bishmei de Rav, Sofik de Shmuel. I'm not sure if he said it in the name of Rav or said it in the name of Shmuel. So you see, he wouldn't say a statement without exactly telling you who is the one that might have said it. So when the Gemara wants to praise Rechava that he gave over the name exactly, he should have said, not only does he say exactly, he says he even gives the exact name. If we should say that it says here Rabbi Yehuda, because he wasn't sure, so I think that's the pshat here. I gotta find the place where the Gemara says that Kirachava de Pumpadisa. I think it says somewhere that. That's what Rashi says, I think. But Rashi has a different interpretation. Rashi says, V'nira be'enai. This is not Rabbi Yehuda. It's not Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. Couldn't be. V'nira be'enai, it seems to me, Mishum de Rabbi Muvak Hoya. He was his permanent Rev. Rav Yehuda was his permanent Rebbe. So he called him Rebbe, my Rebbe. He wanted to make sure that everybody associates him as my Rebbe. It's not like the title Rav or Rebbe so and so, but Rabbi, my Rebbe. He wouldn't learn from every other. Havalekoid Rabbi, my Rebbe. It's not the title of call him Rav, call him Rebbe, but call him Rebbe, my Rebbe. The loin is Sapke, but Rabbi Yehuda Achrina. So to make sure, Rabbi Yehuda, my Rabbi Yehuda, don't think it's another Rabbi Yehuda, it's my Rabbi Yehuda. But it's talking about Rabbi Yehuda, and he was in Pumpadisa. That's what Rashi came up to tell us over here. Again, more or less, I think this is what Rashi's saying over here.
Could it have just been a transcription problem?
Huh?
Could it have just been a transcription problem? These things were handwritten and by people all over the place. That the yud was just a mistake of one of the people who was writing.
Oh, no, but it doesn't. No, it's not a girsa. It just seems like that. No, no. I don't. I don't know. I don't know if the problem is that it says Rabbi, and there is possible that this Rabbi means Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. Um, so first of all, according to Rashi, it means that he had to meet him. Can he say in name of Rabbi Yehuda Nossi? Like it doesn't say any other middle person here, so it means that he spoke directly with Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. But the other thing I don't understand, if the whole issue is Rabbi, why not say it's Rabbi Yehuda Nossi? Okay, we have a problem. So why is a suffix better than just saying that the Chava Omar to say Rabbi Yehuda Nossi? What do we gain if we're trying to explain the word Rebbe, right? So why say it was a suffix whether it was him or not? I don't have it clear. I have to admit. I have to still look up. Tosha speaks about it over here. Also, in the other Gemaras, Tosha brings down.
I still don't see why it can't be a transcription problem, because according to this, it had to be Rabbi Yehuda. It couldn't have been Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So
yeah, but the question is, why did he write Rebbe? But okay, maybe if we didn't have a problem, you would say it's a mistake. But we have a good answer. Okay, so now we're going to go back to question. Ula came up with 3 things, and Chava came up with a 4th things. And the Gemara is going to question all of them. Why did we need to write them, spell them out again? It seems like from the Mishnah, we already have all these things already learned, and we don't need a Mishnah to teach us those halachas. And that's the Gemara going to deal now with. Okay, so the first thing he said, so basically he said that you're allowed to put the shechta, the animal, on Yom Tov. You can take the skin, put it out in the front, so people will stand on it. So the Gemara says, Tanina. We already learned this in the Mishnah. Tanina b'masnisin. It says in the Mishnah. What says in the Mishnah? Ubeis Hillel Aimrim, Ubeis Hillel Matirim. Beis Hillel, the halach is like Beis Hillel. They permit. Ula my nafkalon. What do we care about? What do we learn out from Ula? Ula said, Earlif Neaderson. It says so in the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Ma'u de Tema. Now you might think Tamayu de Beis Hillel, Mishum de Chozi lemizge alayu. Why does Beis Hillel say that it's okay? It's because you can lay on them. That skin, that's like a carpet. Sit on it and be on it. Vafilu merev Yom Tov nami. So then, maybe even if you skinned the animal from before Yom Tov, and you had an opportunity to put out for Yom Tov, you should still be allowed to do it, because we're only allowing you because it's a spread. So what do we care? It's not because you need to do it on Yom Tov. That's why a person may make a mistake. So maybe you would think you're still allowed to. Beis Hillel just says you can put it out, but we don't know why. So that's why Kamash Malon. So that's why Ula comes to teach us. Hitiru Seifa Mishut Chilosom. The only reason why they allow you to spread it out, why the Chachamim, why they still allow to spread it out, is because the beginning, because they want you to go shech the animal. So they will also allow you to spread it out. And therefore, the Yom Tov ain't. The Yom Tov, yes, because they want you to shech, but the Erev Yom Tov, no, you should have done it before. They're not going to allow you. Okay. The next question is on this second cases. Teresa Chaniyas, Nami Tanina, says the second case was that the boards that close up their store, which they put up the merchandise, you're allowed to close it up after they finish selling their goods on Yom Tov, what the people need for the Neichel Nefesh. So the Gemara says, Teresa Chaniyas, Nami Tanina. We learned that as well. Because it says in the Mishnah, Beis Hillel Matirinach lahachzir. It says very clearly that Beis Hillel allows even to return. Tinina Zokt Rashi b'masnisin. It says Beis Hillel Matirin af lahachzir, that Beis Hillel allow even to return Karsina. So it says that they're allowed to even return. So why does Ula have to tell us this then? What do we learn from Ula? And the Gemara says, Ma'u de Tema, Tamayu de Beis Hillel, Mishum de'ein binyan b'kelim, ve'ein stira b'kelim. V'afilu de botim nami. Maybe the principle that Beis Hillel allows it because they are of the opinion that there is no such a thing as building when it talks about vessels, and there's no such a thing as breaking when we talk about vessels. Here we're talking about a movable thing. It's not stationary. It's not connected to the ground. It's like a cart. They used to sell stuff on a cart, a wheel. Sometimes they have these bicycles with these carts. They would have, that was their store, and they would take off one of the panels and they would sell and they would put it back. So one can think that the reasoning for Beis Hillel, there's no building in vessels, there's no breaking apart in vessels. And therefore, afilu de botim nami, even in the houses also. What does that mean? So let's do the Rashi. The ein binyan b'kelim, zokt Rashi, ein isur binyan ustira b'kelim. There is no an isur. There's no building or taking apart the kelim. The whole building issue doesn't apply to kelim. If it's not attached to the ground, there's no isur to binyan ustira b'kelim. Elo b'botim. Only in the houses. Building a house, structure connected to the ground, that's where there is a binyan. So the nechayiv b'binyan kodu, only in a house that we would be obligating in just any building. So why is one not allowed to make a vessel or completing a vessel on Yom Tov, not on Shabbos? If there is no structure Rashi is trying to say we know that you can't work, you can't build a keli, you can't build things on Yom Tov, but you're saying if it's not stationary, then you're not really building anything, right? So why, if one makes a keli or completes it on Yom Tov or on Shabbos, the reason you're also is mishumake bepatishudim mechayiv. That is another obligation. It's not for the building; it's for the bang of the hammer. That's the last. That's a malacha of Shabbos. One of the third malachas is the final bang when they get a keli ready. The final bang is the makeh bepatish. That's the prohibition. Shehu chiyuv l'chol gemar melacha. That would be obligation for any type of melacha to complete it. So that would be why you can't make a keli on Yom Tov or Shabbos. Or another reason when you can't make a keli, if it's something which he smoothed out, so then it's chayiv machik. Then you would be liable because you're like erasing, which also you're not allowed to do because you're smoothing it out. If it requires cutting down, then it's chayiv mishum mechatich for cutting. V'chein oireg, same thing is weaving, or masach, covering, or toifer, or sewing. These would be all the various malachas that a person would be chayiv. That's why you can't make a keli. Avol binyan ustira lo shayich bu le'achiyuvi besiluk ve'chazora. But building and breaking doesn't apply to the kelim to obligate you when you remove it and you put it back. So the tanan haboina kol shehu. This that we say in the Mishnah that in Shabbos, if you build any amount, there's a perik of kufbeis perik haboina. We say any amount you build, but any amount, one would think maybe it means a vessel. No, he says bebotim tanan. That's talking about houses. So the Hilkoch, this is what Rashi said before. Ein isur binya v'stidu bekelim. Ela bebotim the nechai binya koldu is from this Mishnah later on that it's only a kolivot. Behilkoch Beis Hillel afilu betevois habayis, and therefore Beis Hillel, even those boxes that are in the house, the box is not the one that the carts that they're selling in the street. Shoru l'salik l'seseyem ulahazir. He would allow you to remove the doors and to bring back. And ba'afal gav, the lav l'simchas yom tov. And even though it's not for simchas yom tov. Kamash malon ulo, so ulo teaches us the afal gav the ein binya v'stira b'kelim. Even though kelim don't have a binya v'stira ka'asile b'sila midrabonon. B'sila would prohibit it midrabonon. Even lav mishum tchiloson, it had not been for the beginning. The chanuyas shein tzorchi rabim, shein tzorchi rabim. The chanuyas shein tzorchi rabim in. Only if they do tzorchi rabim. Avol trisik le'abayis loy. But vessels in the house, the trisim, you're not allowed to. So he is trying to tell you, don't think that there's just you can just do whatever you want when it comes to kelim, because there's no binyan and kelim at all. He said, no, the Rabbanah don't allow binyan and kelim either. The only reason they allowed it by the trisim is because of the end, because of the tchila, because we want people to go ahead and sell. It's tzorchi rabim. But not just in your home. That's why he teaches us only in the stores which means where it's needed for the other people, but not in the not in the house. It's not allowed. The next thing they said, Ula said, he said that you can bring back a bandage on your wound in the Beis Hamikdash for the kohen, so that he can work his work without the bandage. He needs to work with his hands there, can't have a chatzitza. So he removes his bandage, he can bring it back. So the Gemara says to return back a bandage in the Mikdash, namitinina. Dinor be'erevin, we're learning more erevin. Machzirin retiya be'mikdash avaloi b'medina. That you could bring back that bandage in the Mikdash, not in the outside the Beis Hamikdash, so that he can do the avodah. So what was Ula Machadish here? Machzirin retiya be'mikdash avaloi b'medina. So what was he Machadish? What was Ula telling us? What is the chiddush that Ula is telling us? And the Gemara says, Ma'u the thing, because you might think, Taima Mai, Mishum the Ein Shvus b'Mikdash. You might think that the reason why you're allowed to do it is because Ein Shvus b'Mikdash, meaning since it's a Isur Midrabanan, this whole bandage thing is Midrabanan to put it back, and in the Beis Hamikdash we don't apply Isurim Midrabanan, so therefore the coin is allowed to put it back afterwards. So that's why we're allowed to do it. And therefore, somebody who's not serving could also do it because there's just no problem in the Beis Hamikdash. That's why he tells you, Ma'u the tema taima de teira mishum le'gozur ala shvus shebimikdash, because they didn't make a decree on a shvus with Rabbi Mikdash. To tie a bandage and any other item which is not a malacha, but a shvus, who shegozur chachamim v'chol gzeira refuis gzeira mishum shchika samonim. Chachamim don't allow to make any medicine because of a decree. Maybe you might come to grind the spices, the different things that you use for a medicine, so they don't allow you to do it. Oh, so the Beis Hamikdash, where there is no shvus, because Chachamim did not apply their gzeirus midrabon in the Beis Hamikdash, so therefore there's no applicable afilu koyin de la baravedu. So that would be even a koyin who's not an avodah. Kamash Malon. So that's why he comes to teach us that itiru seifa mishum b'chilosa. So that's why he's teaching you. No, the only reason we're allowing it to you over here is itiru seifa mishum b'chilosa. Therefore, the bar avoda for him, he needs to do the avoda. We allow it. The la bar avoda loy. One who's not a bar avoda, we don't allow it. And I guess even though ain't shvus b'mikdash, but it's only if you're doing the avodah, but not if you're not doing avodah. The Gemara doesn't elaborate over here. Now the final case was what Rechava said. He said paseches chavisoi, that to open up the barrel because namitinina, learn the chagiga. It says a paseches chavisoi maschil bi'isosei, that if you open up the barrel and you start your dough, I'll have a regel on the back of the yontif. So what is the din? So Rav Yehuda says, let him conclude. He says he should finish. In other words, no tumah will come back to these items after yontif. Chacham said he should not finish. So we don't need to tell you that you're allowed to. According to Rav, you could allow to according to to finish because it says already that you can finish. What do we need to know? What does we need to know the reason? Ma'u the Tema. Because you might think Tumas Ha'Oretz Beregel Ki Tohira Shavyuhu Rabbanan. The Chachamim made it as its Torah, which means it's at that point it's like Torah. Das Machu Akro, the word that the Chachamim lean it, it's with Rabbanon, but they leaned it on the verse. It says Ki Ish Echot Chavedim, like one person friends, meaning everybody together. So the time of the Rabbi Yehuda, and what's Rabbi Yehuda's reason that he says you can finish? Is Mishum Delay Hadra Chayla. It can rest again. Once you've taken it away, you can't bring it back. Even though he didn't start on the back of the yontif to sell it because of the yontif. And it happened that an Amoris touched on yontif, you would say, "Come Rabbi Yehuda, the emagoy metama." I feel lachar regel. He would tell you that also after yontif, it's not going to be metama. Because you're going to say it doesn't apply. He holds it doesn't extend to further on. But you don't have to only start it. Anything you touch doesn't apply because on Yontif we don't apply to them. Kamash Malon, Rachava, Tishum did Chilosim, it's on the close. The Gav, the Gemara says. Even when they start, Kamash Malon, Tiru Seif Mashut Chilosim. That the reason is only because he started they let the end because of the beginning. So his chila ain, by his chil, oy. Okay.
Does that mean they shouldn't have started?
I'm sorry?
So what does that mean? They shouldn't have even done the first?
No, that only because they started already, they opened up the barrel, did they allow them to later on after Yontif. But if he didn't start it and he just touched it, then he didn't allow. It doesn't apply to them. Because he didn't want them not to open up the barrels. But if he didn't open up the barrels, there's no gezerah. Well, they want him to sell for Yontif so that he should be supplying. So people should have what to buy. But if he didn't open the barrel, happened that somebody touched it, we're not going to allow them to use it after Yontif. Because that's not the reason.
So according to
Right, the Gemara, yeah?
according to Chachamim, that doesn't apply because they say you can't sell it after Yontif. That's gonna make the guy not want to open the barrel. If the
Yeah, well, that's true. Because they're gonna not be able to sell. I mean, you can sell it to an Amahoret, you can sell it, yeah, you lose for that barrel, you lose it out. But apparently they won't worry about it.
Okay.
So this the Gemara says, Takev Ula my time Ula said 3. Why didn't he say this one? And the Gemara says, Beplukta lekamai. He didn't want to talk about a machloikis. Beplukta lekamai. But plig Rabbanon. The Rabbanon don't agree that you can do it after Yontif because of Yontif, right? So he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to talk in the cases where there's a dissent. These are also machloikis because Beis Shammai disagrees with Beis Hillel. He doesn't allow the other ones either. And the Gemara answers, Beis Shammai mokem Beis Hillel in a Mishnah. Beis Shammai in where Beis Hillel is not a Mishnah, and therefore he doesn't have to. He's not worried about that, and he doesn't. That can bring that down. So Ula brings down only 3 cases. Which, even though Beis Shammai dissents, but Beis Hillel is the main, doesn't bring down the case that the Rechava brings down, because there is a machlokes from Rabbi. Okay, let's leave it over here, and Emir Hashem will continue next week.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. Beautiful.
Have a good night. Thank you.